bosses in the audience. I'm totally going to say something insulting tonight. I apologize. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. He was a great boss. He's fine. Okay. If I want to click through slides, how about it? Perfect. Thanks.
And it works.
All right. Code for Canada. This is fun. Hey, that's the worst photo of me. Okay. I got 15 minutes. Somebody throw something at me because I'm not counting. Litter civic tech is what I want to talk about. I'm obviously a huge fan of civic tech. I've been involved in it for a pretty long time. Certainly, at least tracking it from, well, we all argue about when it started, but somewhere in the early 2010s. When I first put this slide together, I accidentally misspelled it as wither, H. So that was not, it was not inaccurate to the topic that we're about to talk about, because everyone's laughing. Please keep drinking. Okay. So, because I do think that we are at an interesting point in the sort of evolution of civic tech, and I do think that we are at something of a crossroads, and that is kind of what I hope to talk to you about tonight, because I think some of the choices that we're making individually and collectively right now will absolutely determine the value, the efficacy, the entrenchedness, the, I don't know, kindness, thoughtfulness, whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. I think that it is going to be very much determined in the way that we, in our various and sundry places, roles, governments, start to treat this stuff. And here's what I mean by that. Okay, first of all, this is probably going to be a 100% crowd. How many folks here have watched the show, or at least are familiar with the show Black Mirror? Great. Okay, so we're going to play a little game what I like to call Applied Back to Black Mirror. And all that means is that you can do what I do before every one of these presentations, which is go out onto the internet and look for 3 examples of terrible dystopian things that people are doing with technology right now. You know what I mean? Oh, there's all the stuff that I did. Whatever, it's fine. Keep going. Okay. Apply Black Mirror. There we go. Like that one was my fault. Okay. Applied Black Mirror is a super fun game to play because terrible, horrible things are happening in the world all the time. Here are 3 examples I found just for you. This is my first one. It's my favorite of all the ones I've ever found. It turns out that DJI, which is the leading maker of drones, has tag teamed with Axon, which is the leading maker of tasers, to build drones that have tasers. Fun at parties. Okay. Like, this is horrifying. This is legit horrifying. So we're not that happy about that. What else? Here's a fun one from China. This is a fun one from China. This was I think back in March of 2017 when I saw another one because they're continuing to sort of roll this out across different parts of different major cities in China. But basically, there's they have challenges with people taking too much toilet paper out of the toilet. So the way that this works is if you want like a square of toilet paper dispensed, you have to look at the camera, scans your face, dispenses the toilet paper, then you gotta wait 10 seconds, and then you can look at the camera again, and it will dispense a second square of toilet paper. And that way they can ensure that you're not getting too much toilet paper. And who knows what else? Okay, so equally horrifying. And what else we got? Oh, this one's fun too. This one's actually really interesting. So DARPA teamed up with a couple of researchers, and they are actually sort of surprisingly far down the path of a chip that they can embed into your brain that will both read and write memories. Fun. So you like really, so like every movie that you've ever seen about people who. Sorry, I always get really like smiling and laughing when I do this. Like I'm got sort of a cheerful nihilism about this stuff because honestly, most of the time I don't really know how else to handle it. So here's what's interesting about all 3 of these. It's like, it's very, very easy to sort of do what I just did, which is give you like a super dystopic read on all of them. And I think that we can agree that when it comes to drones and tasers, it's very, very hard to find a non-dystopian version of that. That is just a horrible idea, and I really hope that it doesn't come to pass, certainly already has, right? But then it starts to get a little bit different with the other 2, right? I mean, on the one hand, sure, when we're talking about facial recognition for toilet paper, like, to me that is horrifying. I would prefer not to use one of those bathrooms. Sorry, Canada, washrooms. And basically, but if you talk to, But if you actually look at sort of the way that the surveillance state is developing in China, it's actually quite fascinating, right? Like if you talk to folks who actually live in China, there is a very strong argument for why the surveillance state is really valuable, and that is that they are sort of, we got to where we are with capitalism over about 100 years, and they did it in about 10, right? So like the institutions that they built up to support that kind of activity do not have the same level of trust, and the actions and behaviors that people take around that to establish trust relationships, like contracts, also do not have the history that we do here. So in China, a lot of folks will look at all the things that are going on with surveillance systems and social credit systems and a lot of the other stuff that, again, for me, is wildly dystopic, and they see value in it because it's a way for them to create trust relationships that do not currently exist, and that has value societally to them. This is not me making an argument for it, definitely not, but I think it is adding some interesting nuance and color into the conversation about why these things are happening. With this one, DARPA is not looking to replace your memories. This was actually developed by a couple of researchers who were trying to figure out how to address issues around Alzheimer's, right? Because one of the things that's really amazing about a chip that can read and write memories is that if your memories are disappearing, it can record them and then put them back in, right? So that's the thinking around this. And that's actually a really, theoretically pretty positive use of this kind of technology. Also, obviously, we have seen Black Mirror, so we understand we can go in some other directions that are not as positive as well. And I think this is the one that more than any of the rest that I'm sort of most intrigued by, because the argument that I sort of want to stand up and make in front of all of you today is that this is all about choice. This is all about the choices that we are making with technology in various and sundry contexts. And this is a little difficult because I think the story around technology that has, and I certainly participated in this as someone who was active in Silicon Valley during the years in which we were sort of slowly and then quickly destroying the social fabric of society, was like, basically what we did. I'll do it right now. That the thing about that is that the story that we told, right, and again, I'll put myself in the category because I don't want to try to take away my the story that we told was very much about technological determinism, right? This is what technology wants. There's literally a book by Kevin Kelly called What Technology Wants. And it sort of suggests that there's an inevitability, right? If something can be done with technology, it will be done with technology, which is just utterly ridiculous as an argument, but nonetheless is often the argument that was propagated, and it is often the place that most people start when they think about technological advancement. I think we are all here in the world of civic technology where we understand, or should understand, or can understand that this is actually a choice that we can make. And when you're working with governments, inside governments, like some of these choices that we're making, whether they are actually directed by policy or they just de facto policy because technology sometimes becomes policy in the absence of it, right? Like these choices that we're making are going to sort of, governments have, I don't know if you've noticed, but governments have a lot of power. And like these choices that we're making affect people's lives, and obviously we all know that. But I think that it is not just that we have to know it, I think it is that we have to sort of take it on as a responsibility and be highly, highly aware with all of the challenges and complexities that come with doing that. This is an amazing quote from this super brilliant guy that like everyone here that doesn't already know about. This guy, Melvin Kranzberg, who edited a journal called, I think, Technology and Communication back in the mid-'80s. And he came up with this thing called Kranzberg's 6 Laws of Technology and History. They're all quite brilliant and incisive and more or less define what was going to happen over the next 20 years. But I will just show you my favorite. The first one, technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral. And I just think this is fascinating, right? Because what he was trying to explain, what he was trying to get across, what we were all still trying to really learn how to inhabit, is this idea that technology is a tool that gets imbued with choices, right? It is a hammer that hammers in the nail, or it is a hammer that bashes in the skull. We get to decide what kind of tool it is and how it is that we want to use it. And his suggestion was that this is a fundamental aspect of technology and how we work with it. That it will never be neutral, that there will always be a choice embedded in it, a choice about how it should get used. The question is whether or not we're willing to acknowledge and explicitly make that choice, or whether it just gets made implicitly through our structures and our actions. Kranzberg is a super interesting guy. You should totally check out his Wikipedia page. Okay, so where does this come up? Well, I will tell you about a project I worked on at 18F that I'm very, very proud of and also slightly frightened about. which is this project we call the Eligibility Rule Service. I should give credit to the guy who came up with it, super brilliant man named Ed Mullen. If you're going to continue to try and steal, Department 18 efforts to go work at CBS, I highly recommend you try to grab in. I just noticed a bunch of faces in here that I'm like, wait a minute, they're not Canadian. So let me, real quick backstory on the Eligibility Rule Service. U.S. government is a large, federated government. It gives out lots and lots of stuff and benefits, right? So we have SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, that's food stamps. It feeds, in my home state of Texas, approximately 65% of Texas, which is a lot of people. And right now, the way that rules, like how the money gets doled out, the way that it works between because in our federated government, states have a lot of power and want to have a lot of power and autonomy, but the federal government has a lot of money, so it's a delicate dance between the federal government and the state governments when it comes to dispersing these funds, right? And the federal government has certain rules, and those rules get decided at the federal level, but they have to get implemented at the state level, because it is at the state level that all this money is actually distributed, right? So how do we do this right now? The way that we do it is the federal government comes up with rules or a rule change, which happens actually pretty frequently, and then they say to the states, okay, we're going to give you a ton of money to go build or update your rules system, right? Everybody's nodding their heads because they're like, yeah, this is one of the stupid things governments do with technology, right? So it's not just the states, it's also all of the territories, it's also a couple of other, like the Native American populations, also there's approximately 70-something systems, all of which just get a crazy metric ton of money from the federal government every time there's a rule change, so that each of them can hire basically the same contractor to do different things in 70 different areas. Woo, right? So it's kind of a classic government story. And came in and he was like, hey, we could fix this. We could make it faster and cheaper using, centralization and APIs. And again, not a story that anybody here is going to be surprised by. Super fun meetings though, because you could go in and you'd be like, yeah, we think we can get this for 6 months, do with a rule change and $10 million to, 30 seconds. And the first meeting he said that, they were like, you can't say that, say 4 weeks. He was like 30 seconds and, a relatively negligible cost structure. So that's great, right? This is what we're here to do, right? We're trying to build efficiency, we're trying to save the government's money, we're trying to make things more effective and easy for people. And then the other day I was reading about how the Trump administration, my current administration, yay, shout out to the Trump administration, has decided that they want to they continue to restrict food stamp rules. They're just pulling them further and further back, and they have some really interesting ideas about how they're going to pull food stamps basically from another 3 million Americans. Because it'll save them $12 million, I don't know, $12 million, something ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, so what are we doing here? If this program is successfully implemented, what happens? Did I just make it that much easier for them to do that? How much easier did I make it for them to gang? Do I have a response? I don't know. I'm standing here in front of you saying, I don't know the answer to this question. But what I do know is that I should be thinking about it, right? And I should be thinking about it before I build this, not after I build this. So I'm not standing up saying I'm not pretending to have any answers here. I am saying that, slavishly hearing kind of what I would call the Silicon Valley I would call it the generation, I guess, of efficiency is not a good idea. It's not going to get us anywhere we want to go. Efficiency is certainly one of the values that we should have, but I think there are a lot of other values. Compassion is a value, security is a value, I think democracy in this context is a value. And one of the things I want to know is how do we do that? And again, I don't have answers for you. I think we're in a stage in the evolution of civic tech where we need to actively be grappling with this question. One thing I do know is that I don't think that we're going to get there if we only use the tools that we learn from the folks, myself included, from this place, right? So I think that we need to get past, worshiping explicit or specifically or explicitly alternatives of agile development and human-centered design, because those, or service design or user experience design or whatever it is you want to call it, whatever angle you happen to be taking on it, I think we have to get past that. I think we have to say, like, we are more than just developers, we are more than just designers, we are more than just engineers, we are more than product people, we are more than all of this. We are trying to do something that is larger. And I think that we need to start asking, what are other tools, what are other places, what are other frameworks, other communities that we need to start pulling into these conversations. So I'm not saying we have to walk away from our appreciation for these things, but I think they come from a time and a place that was focused on a way of thinking that I don't know is necessarily the one that we want to aim towards, or not explicitly. So that's where I am. My question right now is, on a more positive note, so what I've done, well, all I can do right now, and what I would hope that you all will sort of join me in, is I've just started looking and asking, what else can we do? What other tools can we put in our toolkit? What other frames? What other lenses? What other ways of thinking or shaping the conversations that we're having can we be using? So I'm just going to show you 3 that I've come up with lately. My first one is a total pandering to Canada one. But I was really impressed by, are you familiar with Mass LEP in Toronto? Do super, super interesting work around new ways of thinking about civic engagement. I highly encourage that you check them out. But basically what I like about Mass LEP is they're looking at new ways to do civic engagement, but really all they're doing is they're looking at what already exists inside the governments that they work with, the Canadian government and other governments now as well, saying how can we reorganize this? How can we make use of the tools that are already available and already at hand? So they do this really cool thing called the Civic Lottery, and another cool thing which is tied to another cool thing they do called a reference panel, and it's basically a way of doing civic engagement by basically taking advantage of the fact that the Canadian government already knows everybody's name and address. And it's true, it does, paying tax. And sort of using that process, using those structures, even using some of the visuals that they do to basically engage Canadian citizens in conversations about where they want Canada to go. I think that's really, really interesting. It's pure design, in a sense, because they're not using any of the tools or technologies that we do. They're simply saying, how can we take advantage of what we already have and remix it in a way that is forward-looking and delivers on the outcomes that we want. So that's one. The second one I want to show you is one of the projects I've become familiar with since going to work for, I am part-time at this organization now called the Institute for the Future, which is just so much fun to say. It's so much fun to say work for the Institute for the Future. I'm really enjoying it. So they built this thing called the Ethical OS, and basically they were technologists need ways to sort of future-proof their technologies. Can we build a framework? Can we build a system that allows us to think through, basically how can we anticipate tomorrow's problems today so that we can maybe not do it? How can we take some of what I'm talking about here and actually, can we do that thing and give a framework? I mean, we're all people that love working with frameworks, right? At the end of the day, if it allows us to be in a room with a bunch of sticky notes, we're happy. And then we're well, recognizing that, how can we take ethics, the ethical structures and the problems that we see right now, how can we take those and build a framework that people can actually use as part of the product development process? Super, super interesting work. It's at ethicalos.org. I think I highly recommend that you check it out. And if you're really interested in it, I've been pushing them very hard that we should do a version that's specifically for governments. So if you want to help me with that, I'd be more than welcome, or you'd be more than welcome. And then finally, just, the Institute for the Future is works in the world of sort of future studies. And if you're not familiar with future studies, you should get familiar with future studies because I think governments could really, really, really use more of this. Future studies is a process that's been developed over the last few years, and it is, again, another thing that's very familiar and comforting for the people that I've shown it to that come from the world of design, civic design, civic technology, because it does mostly involve putting people in rooms and, brainstorming ideas and writing things on sticky notes and then getting everybody to stand up and move them around. So it's it's the same structure, it's just completely different tools and techniques. Kind of like going from one romantic language to another. You're well, some of these words look familiar, but this thing is really new and exciting. The Institute of the Future is basically fundamentally what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people to think far enough in the future, to consider all the possible futures that exist in order to work back from the ones that you actually want. So there's a way of imagining not the future, but futures in order to more actively and explicitly, through the process of strategic foresight, intentionally move in that direction. I don't know about you, but every government I've worked for, which is 3, could use this, and I suspect that every government on the planet could use this. These folks designed a methodology that allows us to get out of the day-to-day and make explicit decisions about the choices and the directions that we want to go. So when I look at this, I think this should be a tool in our tool belt. This should be a thing that we as civic technologists understand and can use. And these are just the three that I came up with when I started poking around based on my own interests. So my strong suspicion is that if more of us start doing this, if we start expanding our view, if we start expanding our lens past everything that we've been focused on for the last 10 years and the tools and the methodologies that we use, I hope it can help. And if not, we can all get tased by drones. So thank you. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you having me here.